Welcome to J.R. Hendrick Texan Consort. Here reading the story of part 3 of Is Jim a Dangerous Man? Is Jimmy. December 8th, 6 p.m. In Houston, Jim is having dinner with Blake Carter among his other associates. Well, I have an opportunity and a solution, Jim said. Tell me all about it, Blake Carter said. I've been appointed by President Clinton, Jim said. Administrator of Public Liaison for the Small Business Administration. No, Blake said. Yes, Jim said. Jim, no, Blake Carter said. It's a job that requires skill after years of training. No, Jim, that is simply something you don't possess. What the hell are you saying? This job isn't for amateurs. Jim, if you don't realize this soon, you're going to be hurt like you've never been hurt before. I got my son, J.R., Jim said. He's studying in public affairs. And I can put in a hell of a staff that Bill Clinton can't even match. I'm just trying to save you from something that is going to hurt you so bad, Blake said. 7:55 p.m. JR is in his room listening to some music. His plans for tomorrow were to go for a swim after breakfast, then listen to Rush Limbaugh while his grandmother goes off to chemotherapy. Meanwhile, in Houston, the party is winding down. Jim had walked away from Blake Carter, feeling the man was no more than a cynical stir. December 9th, 6:25 a.m. JR wakes up and goes into the living room. He pours himself a Dr. Pepper out of the beverage cabinet. Christine, your bus is outside, Elizabeth said. I'm coming down now, Grandma, Christine said. Don't worry, Grandma. See you tonight, Elizabeth said. Then she turns to JR. What you got going on today? Swimming. Bible study with Brad and Karen tonight, JR said. Well, you'll be in good hands. Listen, I don't like Brad. But at least thank God he don't drink or smoke. 11:25 a.m. Eastern. Meanwhile, at the White House, President Clinton is meeting with his friend, Secretary of Commerce, Ron Brown.
Didn't see that was not Mr. President Christopher Clemens.
It becomes a huge problem. Hendrick, disappointment.
is a quick 6 months in, quick out. He ain't nothing but a redneck inbred. Are you sure, Mr. President? Oh, no. He comes across as dangerous. All these people he's got barking for him, saying that he's dangerous. Well, because he's a big oil man. But I ain't fooled. He's a redneck inbred, Ron. Don't you worry about a thing. He won't be in that office for long. Just one of them out of the way things. There's no way he can make trouble for me. And you need to realize that, and the sooner you realize that, the better. We've been friends for quite a while, Mr. President. We're still going to be good friends. Hendricks is a thorn on my side, but it's only 6 months, quick in, quick out. Don't you worry about a thing, all right? You listen to me. He's an inbred. He's a redneck inbred. All right? I don't want you to think of anything different of him. But just a redneck inbred, a Hillary and I can take care of and get rid of him. Trust me. It's not that bad. It's not that bad. Hope you're right, Mr. President. Now, Ron, have I ever been wrong? He's an old man. It's just a little reward, little pittance for whatever service he wants to render. Don't mean nothing to me. You should know by now. That redneck inbred is not going to destroy my public image. You hear me? You understand? Yes, sir, Mr. President. I understand perfectly. See, he's been trying to get in that Commerce position ever since Bush. Bush wouldn't let him in. I damn sure wouldn't let him in. So don't you worry about a thing. They're eating right out of my hand.
"12:05 p.m. JR is listening to Rush Limbaugh, who gives this following pronouncement. Bill Clinton is the photo op president, Rush said. Tell you something. He signed NAFTA. He's in front of God and everybody. And then he has a few members of the press and White House covers having pictures taken of him with children singing songs in celebration of Hanukkah. He makes off that says he supports Israel, but yet uses things the opposite way. His grandmother, meanwhile, is laying down in an oncology center undergoing chemotherapy. 12:55 p.m. After a cheeseburger lunch, JR goes for a swim in the ranch's indoor swimming pool. Tomorrow night this pool would be the scene of a major party with a spirit club. JR had invited Ken to come over and see him that night as well. 1:25 p.m. JR is in his room at home, listening to the rest of Rush Limbaugh. He lays down on the bed. His grandmother would be coming in from chemotherapy at 3. Outside, the ranch hands are done milking the cattle and are now getting 7 of them ready for an auction tomorrow in Junction, Texas. 2:35 p.m. JR picks up the cell phone and calls Calvin Harlan. I can't believe the assistant dean for disabilities did that to you, Calvin said. She deserves to be fired. Anybody who is majoring in public affairs has to take business and professional communications. Lots of us guys in the Spirit Club know that she told Brad, you don't deserve that statistics grade. I don't understand. Oh man, you met an A. No way. Roger said you were the best student for the final. Man, you focused on your grandma and your friends and don't focus on P-Brain Brad. You can hang out with him, but be careful. 3:45 p.m. Meanwhile, in Houston, Betsy calls her mother, who is still undergoing chemotherapy. Her husband had been talking to industry leaders at a forum with Rice University. Kyle had been able to sell some bulls at the auction. 3:15 p.m. Elizabeth arrives at the ranch after her chemotherapy. Whitney helps her into her chair by the Christmas tree. There's my sweet young man, Elizabeth said. You know, JR, once you get out of college, I see you going far. Go to some big town and make a name for yourself, son. Don't stick around here and follow your daddy's footsteps. I don't want that, Grandma. I got law school. Ken has business school. And then we move off to Dallas-Fort Worth. There's the Brandenburg PR firm there, and I want to work there. You are wise, Elizabeth said. 7 p.m. JR, Elizabeth, and Christine sit down for dinner. It's a hamburger steak crafted with onions, breadcrumbs, well battered, with mashed potatoes and green beans. Okay, so Grandma, Jennifer's mom is picking me up after school. I told Mom I wouldn't be back until Monday or Tuesday, Christine said. Christine, all I ask is that you stay out of trouble. I mean, you're my Miss Jig, and you have quite a reputation around here, Elizabeth said. I know, Grandma. Just as long as JR and his nerd herd don't start throwing any wild parties either. I already received instruction, JR said.